One of my favorite games of all time. Seriously. I love this game, and I want to show you some of my favorite stuff about it. Just take a tour of all the things that make this game great, like truly great. Number one here, I'm walking through right now. This is incredible snow physics. This is great. This is probably second only to Red Dead Redemption. And it was done earlier, so I can't imagine how it looks now in whatever sequel they've got cooking up. But I love this for so many reasons. Number one, this wasn't in the original game. The snow in the base game was static and just had kind of basic footprints. It wasn't volumetric or anything like that. Didn't have any deformation. It was pretty snow, but not interactive. This is from the Frozen Wilds DLC. By the way, there'll be no spoilers in any of this. I've already finished all the story, and this is kind of open world post-game stuff. Won't be talking to any characters or anything like that. The only thing is, what you might consider location spoilers, but I'm keeping it pretty minimal. Anyway, this is from the Frozen Wilds DLC, and I love that the team in their DLC didn't just pack in more content, which is already great. Didn't just make it so that there was a bunch of missions to do, more characters to meet, machines to fight. They worked on the engine. I mean, they made the technology of this game better.
Going down fast.
Love that. Love that slide. I love that she slides, and I like that she comments when specific things. That right there, that little climb with their hands, that's just such a tiny detail that's just adds so much. There we go, another slide. I love that they worked on this engine. They didn't just make it more. You could tell the team is so passionate about how their game looks, how the Decima engine runs. So this DLC, even though it's all part of the same world, I can walk from the new area of the map to the old areas of the map, but the technology is different. It's crazy. I mean, most studios, generally speaking, when they add an expansion, even the ones that do add an expansion, which is already sort of a feat, not just to add some random stupid missions and stuff, but to actually have a whole expansion that's worth your money, there's a lot of content, potentially, but everything's the same. Like, the mode of traversal, the things that you're interacting with are all pretty much the same. It's a mishmash of some new assets with a jumble of old mission types and maybe new difficulties. But this DLC really has it all, and I think it's just representative of how that team approaches making video games. There's new, water physics. Oh, hello. Man. What a sight. This game never ceases to look good. At any time of day. I love that you can hear the footsteps from so far away. That's a real treat. So, the Guerrilla Games kept working on this game well after release, and a year after this game came out, they were still making little fine-tuning things. You could still see in an update that they added water physics. When the game first released, you would walk through water and there would be no ripples around your character. The water wouldn't interact with you at all. But now, you walk in and there's all these ripples. And that wasn't there to begin with. Which, yeah, a lot of games do that. I get that. That's not a huge feat. But just that they kept working on this game, I love the spirit of this game. This game is so ambitious, and it never stops pushing forward. It's such a representative piece of work from such an ambitious team. And right here, I love these little details right here, where there's little flecks of ice on the water surface, and when you walk through them, you're making a trail through the little flecks of frozen ice. What a delightful little detail. The armors of the game, super impressive. They remind me of Witcher 3 armors, where they're very physically based materials, very, very realistic, and they look like something someone could actually wear and make, which I think was definitely a goal of theirs. Like, I think they definitely sought out to make some really realistic looking armor. And even the tree bark here, very, very impressive tree bark. You know, it's not like it's gonna make or break a game, but the fact that the tree bark looks this good, and it's something that you just walk around and run around, it stands up to some pretty high scrutiny. Like, it only starts to look a little blurry and kind of little wish-washy and a little bit gross when you get super close, at which point the depth of field takes over. But I just adore that. I love how the grass obviously moves around you. Not all the grass does that, only the interactable grass that you can hide in. But taking a look at the wind does push all the grass and leaves and trees. I don't know of any other game currently out that has the wind moves so much of the leaves and the grass. Everything is always moving in this game. Your character can stop, and you're doing this a lot. You're hiding in grass a lot in this game. So you do get a chance to appreciate how dynamic the world is around you. And of course there's always something moving. There's snowflakes falling down. Right now a little bit of a flurry is starting. The weather's very dynamic, but I'll talk about that more in depth probably. And I don't appreciate this much about games, or at least I don't do a good job of appreciating it enough. Great soundscape. Like, I'm walking through a little bit of crunchy snow right now. Just walk through some grass. I'm actually going to shut up for a bit, and then I want you all to, like, pay attention to it, because that's the only way you can really appreciate soundscape, is if I'm not talking. Just appreciate all the things that she's running into and walking through, and how the sound design recognizes that and reinforces what you're walking through. I think it's something that you don't really notice when it's done really well, and when it's not there, the game just kind of feels cheaper. But I'm going to just walk through a bunch of stuff, and just notice that every single thing that you do in this game is accompanied by a sound. Very grounding, this game, soundscape. And the music design is very subtle. I appreciate that subtlety a lot. I don't like it when a game hammers you with its sounds, with its music. If it's a really excellent score, yeah, pump it up. But if I'm just roaming around, not doing much, I like these just tiny little inflections of music. But similar, although those games came out at the exact same time, so they couldn't have really taken inspiration from each other, though I hope they will in the future. Reminds me of that very nature-forward soundscape from Breath of the Wild, which I have not played. I've seen a bit of, and I'm looking forward to playing one day. But the world is like really the main star of the soundscape. And it should be. The world is so beautiful that your ears and all your faculties should be drawn towards it. Like, I'm gonna sneak up. Actually, let me check my armor, because I like to put on armor that has the highest sneak. Whoops. So that basically robot dinos will leave me alone. So let's see what we got here. Pretty sure I have all the outfits in the game. Which one did I equip with the sneakiest? There we go. Excellent. And I think this is a good looking armor too. I really like the fur shoulder guard there. Fur and leather. And I'm going to move out of this snowy region because everything gets... This is another thing that I like. Your outfit gets caked in little bits of ice and snow, which is great and very grounding. I love that they do that. But it does sort of take away a little bit from the fidelity of all those textures. I think what I'll do is go to like a place with really great weather and show off some of the best armors that I think are in the game, and how phenomenal the texture diversity is just on the armors themselves. But let's listen to this croc. You can hear all the shells on its back, all those plates on its back sort of rustling against one another. Of course, the footsteps are really great, really deep footsteps. This game has really excellent footsteps for creatures. Oh, here's another friend here. And I like just that little flute in the background, just to let you know danger is afoot. It's not freaking out. Like a lot of games when you're around enemies, the battle music starts pumping, and I'm thinking of like Skyrim, take for example, very stereotypical, where the enemies don't even know where you are, and you're just kind of searching around, and this like battle music is playing, and it's just needlessly stressful, and also doesn't reflect like the current mood that you're playing in right now. Like I'm in sneak mode, things are still peaceful technically, so it would just feel weird if this, you know, thumping tune was playing. I like that the game recognizes I'm not in combat, but I am not safe. I'm in danger, not in combat. Let's roll around the snow just a little bit more before we leave the cut, which is this region of the world. It's a pretty cool name, the cut. I love that you can see grass peeking out from underneath the snow. That's really, really impressive stuff. That not only did they add snow deformation, but the snow deforms to reveal an actual ground and grass layer underneath. I don't know how they were able to... Man, I mean, this whole game is sort of feels like magic to me, because the console that it's on was... I love the PS4, but it was dated the day it came out. We know this, and it has a really weak CPU. The CPU was made out of, like, mobile chips that were already dated on day one, and by the time this game came out, those chips were like 8 years old. It's crazy. And that they were able to make this happen. I know Guerrilla Games has a very, very technically efficient engine. Very good engine, but also super efficient, where they're always culling things that are happening outside of your field of view. Nice. I love that echo when that character spoke. I think that was Aloy, but I didn't hear what she said. Really good good job of making it feel like I'm speaking into a mountain range, and it's kind of calling back with an echo. But they do have a really impressive engine, so that everything in front of you can be as good looking as possible, because they can throw everything behind you in the trash when it comes to like memory. I'll speak later. I have volumes to say about a potential sequel and how exciting that is, but I'll stick to this game for now. I like the controls of this game. Very, very tight controls. Okay, I'm actually, you know what, before I get on to the next part, I'm going to move over to a nice fast travel to a more cleaner area, so that we can take a look at the textures more. Because everything in this area is blanketed with snow, and it's great. It sets a mood. Really love it. But I do want like a cleaner version of everything. So I'm going to go to... let's see, I think one of the best places to go... I want to go to like a really nice dense forest. I think this area here should do it. And hopefully, can't really control the time of day in the game, but we'll see how successful we are. Because if it's nighttime, I can play around and show you how good nighttime looks. But hopefully it'll still be daytime. Nice, we got sunlight. I love that when things are falling out of the sky, like just these dust particles, or I think this is, you know, soot from the fire, I'm not sure. That Aloy recognizes it. She puts her hand in the air, feels it, looks up. She's such a emotive character, similar to Kratos in God of War 2018. So much of her character is expressed through the way she moves and through the way she interacts with the world outside of cutscenes. Her looking up and just sort of always being in awe of her world. She's like a very curious person. That's like part of who she is. That's why she learns so much more about her environment than anybody around her. So just the fact that she has this very, very subtle fascination with the elements and with the snow, all that stuff is such a totality of detail when it comes to animating this character. I'm gonna creep into pretty good HDR in this game. Not pretty good, very good, I should say. Which you can't appreciate, but essentially, if you are gonna end up upgrading your TV at some point, just make sure it has good HDR. Which would mean both HDR10, HDR10 Plus, and Dolby Digital. This is for, like, you know, video files, but the HDR just literally just makes more colors possible on your TV. It is hard, I'll be honest, it's hard to notice in the thick of things, but if I were to turn it off, I would notice. You very much notice it when things are on and off, and just gives games a lot more vibrancy, a lot more color possibility. So now that we're close... Oh, it's starting to drizzle. You can start to see how great the materials are on her armor. I think it's starting to get dark. Let me find a nice lit area. Each area has its own sort of musical theme, musical soundscape. I like that she has a little effort when she jumps. Oh, here's our tall neck. Really well done mountains in the background. Those mountains, they seem, you know, they're low detail, but still very crisp. They feel like crisp mountains. So she's got what looks like leather and fur, and what I'm actually going to do is enter photo mode. Phenomenal photo mode in this game. Ridiculous. I think every game should have photo mode, just to really showcase all the work that the developers put in. So when we get close, we can see... Oh, and let me mess around with the field of view so we can get closer. There we go. Because I really want to see these materials up close. This is like one of the planar armors, honestly. Doesn't have that super many materials, but even this has like 5 or 6 or 7 different materials, probably more than I'm appreciating. Like those rocks there are their own materials. So this probably has 15 or so different materials from a development standpoint, that they are all reacting to light differently. Like if you take a look at the bracelet she has on, that is reacting to light differently and is clearly of a different material than what is just above, which is sort of, I don't know what you'd call that blue stuff, but it's hugging the leather, and the leather underneath is poking out because clearly the mesh on top is very tight, and It's then sealed off at the elbow with a cord, and then we have some machine parts, which they do a really good job of using machine parts that you can sometimes even recognize off of the machines on the pieces of armor. Again, reacting to light totally differently, having their own shadows, even the wrinkles here kind of reacting to the light on the leather. It is pretty ridiculous. This is the type of detail that goes into maybe the one main armor on a main character in many games. And this is just one, you can see the stitching on this cloth here. Let me try to change the depth of field, because the cloth on these little ragtag pieces of mesh here, this game is punching way above its weight for the system it's made on. Depth of field off. Yeah, it's good. We'll keep it off. All right, I'll just do my best to get close to this mesh here on the right. Oh, hello. Oh, good. And then I'll make the field of view tighter. Nice. So this is crazy. I'm getting so close to this cloth. Never would you be this close in game, but you can see pattern of stitching. Wild. The bow here looks a little bit gunky, but you'll never see it this close. Still kind of impressive that each bead still reacts and has its own little mini reflections. And they look different too. They're different shapes of beads. They didn't have to do that. But let's back up the camera, because we're getting some gross textures, but that's kind of the way it goes. Aloy's face is very well modeled, though. I like that she has an actually unique bone structure, a unique face, and she's got real eyebrows, like actual eyebrows, not just like drawn on hyper feminine eyebrows. Her eyes, her actual eyeballs are, let's inch our way up. Look at those pores. Those pores are, I honestly love God of War. God of War came out a year, basically exactly a year after Horizon. I think Aloy's face looks more polished and better than Kratos' face. Though Kratos' face looks super good at times, this is pretty ridiculous. And at times, oh man, you can even see, there's not any ray tracing or anything on here, of course, but they still do a good job of faking the reflection that's in her eye. If you see that blue reflection of the skyline in her eyeball, it is above and beyond. She's got individual eyelashes, really fun stuff. All right, I'm gonna back up into the game. I'm gonna get a different armor on. One of my favorite armors that has a lot of material diversity is the anything Carja has such beautiful material diversity. Let me pick one that is Carja silks are just such a phenomenal piece of armor, because I'm gonna go back into photo mode. I forget if there's a shortcut to get to photo mode, but it's okay. These materials, let's get that field of view back so I can zoom in. We'll back up a little bit so are ridiculous, are absolutely ridiculous. Look at the pattern on, this looks like royalty. This is something that you could see in today's world and it would cost a lot of money. These are like Moroccan silks. I mean, the pattern here is so above and beyond any need for this detail, but you can tell it was an absolute labor of love from whoever team was in charge of creating the armors. They decided that the culture of the Carja culture and the kind of tailors of the Carja culture and region would put this kind of effort into their clothing, and so the clothing must have this kind of eccentricity and detail, because that's like the people it comes from. This game cares a lot about its tribes. I honestly don't. The game didn't really succeed in making me care about its tribes, but I like that the game and the developers care a whole lot about their tribes, so that a lot of things are consistent because of that care. This little like folder thing here, it's so it almost looks like a lawyer's sort of leather laptop, uh, fancy leather laptop cover or something. But it's so modern, is what I'm saying. And this is a very Carja thing. The Carja are the most modern society that we know of in the game, and they have the biggest city, uh, the most technologically accomplished. So of course they would have the most detailed and work intensive and accomplished clothing. We have like five just in this. I'm not even looking at the whole armor. We have like 17 different materials that are happening, all reacting to light differently. Um, Very photorealistic leather, very photorealistic. I mean, I've sat on couches that look like this, and I can attest to the accuracy of that stitching. Gorgeous stuff. I love the gold accents, very shiny. It really shines like gold. It catches your eye like real gold. I can't see Aloy's shoes that well, but they always model the shoes out really well too. And I love how we clearly have what is like the wings, or at least some small version of the wings from a thunder, not a thunderjaw, sorry, a stormbringer. Storm. I'll check the name because I don't want to get the name of the bird wrong. It was a giant mechanical eagle, and so this kind of plating here is reminiscent of those feathers, those mechanical feathers. They're attached by leather. Three different metallic materials here. They did not have to do this. They just straight up did not have to do this. Aloy's hair is phenomenal. Seriously phenomenal. Ahead of its time, honestly. But I'm going to walk around in Carja Silks for a bit. Every texture is phenomenal on her armors, but they're also interactive. Again, a little bit similar to Witcher 3, but like on steroids. All the tassels and the bangles and the beads and the bits of jewelry, everything's moving, everything's jostling. It reminds me of a like an Akira Kurosawa film where so much of the expression is not from the characters' dialogue and what they're saying, but everything happening around them. That this game does a lot of showing as well as telling. One of the things that the DLC adds is a bunch of different weapons and armors. I really appreciate that they added so much to the DLC. They like made it worth it, and you can take those new weapons and armors into the old world and use them how you like. Oh, we have a friend. I'm gonna go look at those particle physics and see what we can see, because this is a scrapper, I believe. Yep. I'm gonna try to get as close as I can. What I should do is get my sneaky outfit on. Super sneaky. So that I can get super close. You can, it's, the sneak stat, the stealth stat is a little bit broken in this game. It's kind of funny. You can just walk right by, if you got the right armor and mods, you can just walk right by animals. I don't really care. But I like that. I don't like a game that's always trying to attack you. Let's get super close to this friend here. And just admire. I'm gonna get silly close. And then, actually even closer. Yeah, there we go. And then, look at this guy. So this is just one of the simplest creatures in the game. This is a scrapper. It's just like a wild dog, essentially. And it bears the mark, that triangle insignia, bears the mark of its producer, of the cauldron it came from. Attention to detail there. Its jaws are a little like sawmill. This was whoever did the creature design is a genius. They must be well versed in like so many different disciplines, because they must know about anatomy, biology, robotics. It is remarkable how fantastical these creatures are and how lifelike they are at the very same time. Not crazy. I'm never crazy about when a game does the like crazy lens flare stuff. I don't think it's worth it. I just don't get it. But whatever, it's not a big deal. At least they didn't go crazy with it with like a Kojima game. So many different materials going on in these creatures, let alone the animation. That brushed steel down there at the leg, if you can see way down there at the leg, there's that brushed steel. There we go. That's just a little bit rusted. This thing has been around. It's not fresh from the factory. You have the coiling, the wires underneath. I mean, this creature was really built with genuine biomimicry. And it's a treat. It's a visual treat to see someone who's super good at their job realize something so complex. There's a lot of details with the animation stuff that I won't be able to show you because they require very specific context, like, you know, if you shoot the paw of different animals, they'll react differently, and so many animals have so many different animation cycles and so many contextual animations based on what you do. Super impressive stuff there. I love, oh, night is falling, but that's okay. I think a lot of games look ugly when open world games with day-night cycles, when they become nighttime. Even Spider-Man, which I adore, love that game, doesn't look great at night, honestly. I think it looks fine. But a lot of games just suffer. I think the lighting suffers when there isn't enough light in the scene. Whereas Horizon Zero Dawn keeps a lot of light in the scene. I don't know what they do. Legitimately, I don't know what is the sort of trick. But nighttime in this game looks phenomenal. There's not that much loss of detail, and the lighting doesn't look super artificial, like in so many other games. I'm gonna run out here to get a little bit more of the what's left of the daylight. This game has strong color direction. Sometimes a little too strong. Sometimes a little unrealistic, like how blood red, like blood orange red this sunset is. I love it. I love that they went nuts with how strong sunsets were. Oh, I love this detail here. It's like a fake detail. See that light, that sunset popping in and out when I look back and look forward? See that? That is the, see on that mountain rock right there, it's acting different when I look left and right. That's actually a product, I'm guessing, and my best guess is that that's a product of the culling, of them taking away geometry that you're not looking at, and so the light of the actual sun is pushing through geometry that is popping in and out, because it's constantly making sure to pop geometry back in if there's even a chance that you'll turn around and look at it. So you literally see the light from the sun blink on and off as that mountain range blinks into and out of existence. It's a thing I think they'll probably have to fix for next gen. So here comes nighttime, and you can see already the fog. I don't know if it's technically volumetric, but it sure looks it. See this volume? I'll call it volumetric. This volumetric fog in the distance.
I'm gonna prove myself in these trials. I should do it fair and square.
All right, sister. And you can already see the moon starting to bleed over the moonrise, and the fog of the valleys being illuminated by the moon, as well as the clouds. But peeking through the clouds...
Save the shooting for down in the hunting ground.
Here, let me drop down, because she'll keep saying that. Oh, sorry, Aloy. That was brutal. Yeah, you know what, this game... I was worried that nighttime wouldn't really be able to show much good stuff, but look at the leaves being illuminated by the full moon. This is really impressive stuff. I like how a new trend in video games lately, in AAA, very polished single-player video games, is the light bleeding through like the nose or the ear cartilage of characters, so you can see sort of the light bleeding through ears now. This is like on a whole nother level. It's funny, actually, Aloy herself doesn't have this technology on her, but all the leaves in the grass does. You can even see the tops of the blades of grass being illuminated a little bit, as well as obviously the trees in front of me just blasting us with green light, which it would actually do. And then if I look to a tree from not through the moon, the leaves will react accordingly. Like if we go across the way, across the side to these trees, and look at them from a different angle, we don't see that light bleeding through because we're not looking through to the other side. Alright. I Gotta run away now. Nighttime, this is a nitpick. Nighttime lasts a long time in this game. Nighttime just legitimately lasts a long time. I'm always like, hasn't it been nighttime for like an hour? And it's good that nighttime doesn't look so ugly. Like Witcher 3, I think, looks kind of pretty bad at night. It's just you lose a lot of detail. You can't see much going on.
Safe. For a few minutes, anyway.
I love that she... I know people might be bothered by how much Aloy talks, but I like that she talks about what I'm doing. And when I slide, she, you know, a long slide down a steep hill, she mentions it. She's reacting. She's super reactive to what I'm doing, just like the world is super reactive with all the wind physics and snow and weather, dynamic weather and stuff. But yeah, because I forgive the long nights in this game because they did such a good job of making sure nighttime is still very pleasant to look at. Peek through the clouds and you'll see the stars. And there are times where the stars seem much brighter, and certain areas where the clouds seem a lot, where the clouds kind of part way at night, and you can see the Milky Way super clearly. But in the beginning of the night, you don't see that. So right now, like, we still see some really dark cloud coverage, but peeking through, we see the Milky Way, which is, I think, Starry Nights and how developers in an open world game make their skybox, their Starry Night. I don't know if it's telling. I don't think you're a bad developer if your night sky doesn't look that good, but it's one of my favorite things to do in an open world game is to look up at the Starry Night and see how the developer did it. Let me check the map and see if there's anything else I wanted to show. Because otherwise I think I might just roam around and talk about Next Gen. Talk about, like, the sequel to this magnificent game, which is already... When this game came out, and still to this day, in my opinion, it feels ahead of its time. This game feels like it's from the future. Let's see. The deep jungle, I wanted to be deeper in this game. Still love it. But I did want the jungle to be a little bit more, very jungly. And more verticality, I guess is what I mean. I wanted to be able to go up and down like tree vines, and I had very high aspirations. My expectations for games are always a little too high, but there's a lot of flat ground in the jungle. Why not go, let's go to the big city. Let's go to Meridian, because I think this is honestly the weakest part of the game, the city of Meridian. I like that there is a big city. I appreciate that. They went for it. But I think this is maybe one of those places that they clearly weren't able to accomplish all that they might have wanted to. It's a very static city, as you'll see. And I suspect that what they'll be able to do next generation will kind of reveal what their initial ambitions were for the city of Meridian. Control details. I have these very specific loves when it comes to the controls of this game. I really like that dodge and roll are the same button. I think it's good button efficiency because a quick dodge, well, I should call it a short roll. A short roll is just tapping the button, in my case circle, and then you can upgrade it to a longer roll that feels very satisfying to do, is minimal. It's not like you have to hold the button forever, and also looks very good. Yeah, so here's what I mean. There's a lot of artificial light in Meridian, and at night it just doesn't look that good. It doesn't look very natural. You know, the human eye, I'm looking at this lamp and I'm not thinking... It's a very detailed lamp. I actually quite like that little detail of the spinning sort of brass mill on top of the lamp. Who knows what that's for? It's clearly some kind of oil lamp, I guess. But it doesn't immediately feel like light or electricity or natural fire. My brain's not telling me this is that kind of light and feels natural. It's like a weird, very artificial light that doesn't quite work with the wall around it and doesn't quite bleed out past itself as it should. This game has masterful lighting in a lot of ways, but a lot of it does feel a little too canned, a little too cached. Those are sort of terms, video gamey terms, that I shouldn't just assume everyone knows, but it basically means, like, it's not a light fixture that is actually casting real light and not actually casting real dynamic shadows. Like, if it was, me running around into the light would be throwing shadows everywhere. But that light source and how much light it's giving off and to what distance is set. It's fixed. Someone walks past it, someone moves it, nothing would change. That, I think, is also an improvement probably with next gen. I don't know if ray tracing will be involved, but ooh, here's kind of what I'm talking about. The stars are brighter now that the night has kind of more fully taken over. And sometimes in the DLC, you'll have the Aurora Borealis, which is just great. Like, of course, if you have it seems like if you have a mountainous, snowy area, an open world game with enough love in it will always include an Aurora, which I'm very much for. But everyone's kind of just standing around. Like, what do you... This merchant, I don't need them walking around because they're a merchant. You want to find them, but just kind of standing there is a little too mannequin-y.
You there, Outlander? Do you have relics to trade?
I like that. I like them hailing you over. That's cool. People do walk around, but they have some kind of very stiff walking animations. Not the worst animations you've ever seen.
Trade with you, Outlander.
Yeah, I know. Some people, though, do have places to be. They're not on full cycle clocks with schedules, like in an Elder Scrolls game. But, like, this friend here, let's be a little boring and follow this orange man. Because I know that this guy has a place to be, and he will put that box somewhere, and that box will stay there. It doesn't just disappear into a pile of other boxes. Which is a nice touch, a nice detail. Nobody would follow this guy around.
Relics in the wilds, Outlander?
Yeah, I guess in the city the lighting doesn't look amazing. This game succeeds at making really natural lighting. Like, you can just see how much more done the moonlight is compared to the artificial city light. It's just so much more natural. It bleeds, it scatters across the skin and across fabrics in such a more realistic way than the city light, which I think they could improve on. Like the city, like, it almost gets pitch black at points. Like, it's so dark in some corners that it wouldn't actually be like that. This light, all these light sources would do a lot more to illuminate this area in real life. I'm gonna keep on this endeavor of following this guy. And everyone's got pretty well-textured armor, very complex armor. Obviously not as diverse in textures and quality as the main character. It shouldn't be. But, you know, these armed guards have a lot going on, and even this friend here has got a tattoo and a bunch of still some things jostling and moving around on his body, like his earmuffs. Oh, let's see how he handles this. Okay, he's gone.
Should be out there fighting machines.
Yeah, you can just see how much better the model looks. Look at that. He looks so much better in the moonlight. That's how much of a difference lighting can do to make you feel like a thing is realistic or not. Because the lighting is so very two-dimensional in the city, the artificial lighting makes everything else feel less dynamic, less real. Alright. There he goes. And I love that he stuck it on top of another box and it's staying there. And he's gonna grab that one over there, isn't he? Nope. Ooh, what's he up to? Cool. Nice. And he's off. Oh, he looks confused. Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. He's very confused. You got it? There we go. All those janky animations. Poor guy. He wasn't meant to be seen by anybody. Even just Aloy, you can see how much better she looks in the moonlight as I come into it. All of her texture is just burst into life under that moonlight. And I like how the moonlight, they did such a good job with this, the moonlight itself
Couldn't imagine living anywhere else.
becomes whiter as the night goes on. Because in real life, at 10 p.m., the moon is pretty yellow. And as it gets higher in the sky, it gets whiter and whiter. I don't know why exactly, but that's just the way it goes. And so too does it in Horizon. Very, very bright moonlight. Maybe a little too bright. I like how when you crouch during running, it just all feels very intuitive. So when you're not running, crouch is crouch. Big whoop. But when you're running, of course, it's a slide. So you don't need two different buttons for that. It's just all very intuitive. I love that when you run and you slide, you end in a crouch. The crouch is like is persistent. So when I'm running and sliding into... I love these animals. Running and sliding into a bush to hide from a predator, Aloy's not just going to stand up at the end of that slide like a moron. I like that the game realizes I pressed that square button for a reason. I'd like to stay crouched. And if I don't, I'll deal with it. Like, I will get up again. But the safer option is to remain crouched. It's a very strong crouch button. Yeah, super dark nights in this game. What I would have loved, because the nighttime can be so dark, is a light source. I would love to have had my own lantern or torch to be able to walk around with. Nighttime in real life in nature is super dark, so I get it. It's fine. But I would like to have a little bit more control over how much I can see. And this is a real treat here. We're going to see the sunlight. Oh, okay, buddy. Thanks. I like that you can talk to them. Not much to say, but they respond if I greet.
May the sun bless you, Outlander.
Thanks. I like that there is no shortage of landmarks. Immediately, there's already like 4 different things that are interesting in the skyline. Obviously, number one is that huge spire over there. But this dense forest down here also catches my eye. These big plateaus, some of them you can climb. This creature, this giant bird. I love how far in the distance you can see these animals, these robots. I like how, look, if you look way where my cursor is, you see how low poly those mountains are. They're basically just triangles and squares. I like that little detail. I like to see, like, oh, it's still a video game. It's not perfect. Draw distance is pretty good. Like, they're drawing a whole bird, a whole giant machine back there, so I have to forgive the bad details. And I think part of it is because the sun hasn't shone on it completely, so the game kind of assumes that I can't really tell the difference. But we're starting to see some really beautiful volumetric clouding here. From what I know about the clouds in this game is they are truly dynamic. They actually move on their own system of humidity and wind. They follow like an actual algorithm that the developers have made. When the clouds and humidity are just right, it will start to rain. When that humidity is gone, it will cease to rain. It's a whole thing. It's a very, very dynamic system. See, I think like right now the colors look a little bit off because it's such a strong artistic choice. They've really pumped up the saturation at points, especially during sunsets and sunrises. I don't mind it. I wish it was a little bit more realistic, like a little bit more of a less contrast, less saturation, calmer sunrise. But it's still very beautiful. Like, take for example, like this moment of having this blood red sunlight, it doesn't last long in real life. Like, you get you get to see this for like 15 minutes in real life. So you don't actually see this, you don't actually just get to see this much red light coming from the sun all that often. But I do like if we move a little further away from the city and then take a look back at the city. Ooh, I can totally get a better vantage point. The city looks, my point was that the city looks pretty magnificent from far away. Even that little thing, it's not new to games, but I like that they like salute you on your way in and out. You're a friend, so they acknowledge it. Okay, so let's move somewhere a little bit nicer. Maybe back in like the beginnings, maybe the Nora Heartlands, and see. Yeah, let's move all the way up to here. This is some cool stuff. I think I'll save the next gen talk because I have so much to say, and I just want to focus on this one phenomenal video game. I could talk about the story. The story is very good. I would recommend it if you haven't played this game. Play the story and listen to the tapes. There's a lot of like audio files that they have, but I think this game does audio files very well, where it's not just some guy blathering about exposition. It's dialogue, it's conversations, it's arguments. It fleshes out not what happened in the past, but people. It doesn't just flesh out the story, it fleshes out human beings and how they interacted, and that's what's giving you the story.
So many memories. It's not home anymore. No,
I love that too.
There's nothing for me here anymore.
That she's saying that, like you can go back home in the game. I love that you can go back to your place of home. You can't go inside, which is a bummer.
Getting soaked from melted snow.
And she recognizes that I have brought Aloy to the place where the game began, and she has something to say about it. Love that. This little hideaway here is quite nice. This is sort of the example of the way the snow works in the base game. There's nothing to push off of. The snow doesn't fall away around your feet, but it's still convincing. Now, this is where you start the game. So already you kind of get to see some phenomenal views. And while you'll never be able to get, here, it's detailed enough. You can see these are flat trees, but it's detailed enough to give you the gist. Like, this is a world that's very large. I like that they don't cover your view of everything with mountains. Like, I can see far into this valley, even though that's not exactly where I'm able to go. Actually, I think I can go pretty far into this valley. Maybe we'll do that. And I love that even very faintly I can hear this waterfall. And of course we have some really cool just mysteries on the horizon. Super mysterious views. Things that make you go, I want to go there. See what's up. I do like that Aloy has a strong jump. She's got a high jump. It's not very realistic, but I still love that she can jump so high. She can jump like about her own height. That's like, a regular person jumping like 6 feet in the air. That she jumps so high, but I think for function, it's necessary. She needs to be able to jump super high, otherwise it would feel like a very flaccid jump. Like, it just wouldn't feel effective, and she wouldn't feel as athletic. She feels super capable as a character and super athletic because you can get up these little mountain ridges, because like you can just keep pressing the jump button. It's not the most polished thing in the world. It's not like gorgeous. It's kind of like the way that like Skyrim handled it. So I think they can do a better job with that. She still does clamber up stuff like that with her hands, which makes it a much more polished ordeal than Skyrim. But the fact that she can just, generally speaking, get where she wants to by jumping and climbing makes her feel like a very capable character, which she is.
He's here when I was a kid.
And just this very soft music in the background just reminds you that this game has a very good soundtrack. Aloy's hair is really well done too. Another comparison I'll make to Witcher 3. Geralt's hair is done really well on consoles, even without, you know, the fancy tress effects stuff, like the actual hair physics. They do a good job of having the bobbing animation, all these canned animations that blend together. In early release material, before this game came out and they were kind of showing demos and stuff, it seemed like they were playing around with the idea of having the wind be able to affect her hair. I don't think the strong winds affect her hair like they did in the early release material, but like when Aloy is still, her hair is pretty still, but it's still very, very, very well done. It's pretty ambitious, especially for the kind of texture and style her hair has. Let's look at the waterfall and where it falls into. Pretty good, not great, pretty good water physics. It's not super believable, but it gets the job done, and I think that's another thing that next gen will help with when it comes to like calculating actual fluid dynamics. Oh, what do we got? Somebody around us? I like that you can hone in on enemies with your focus and hear them better. That's very cool. So I could show off the weapons and stuff, but I think that kind of stuff is best felt on the controller. I think they do a really good job with the weapon feel. I think they could have done a better job with the melee. Like having one button for a light attack and one button for a heavy attack. Here's light attack, heavy attack. Was okay, it's serviceable, but I would have liked to have a more analog feeling to the spear. Like actually being able to hold it as a primary weapon, being able to aim the spear and actually stab and poke at particular parts of a machine might have been really cool. Being able to throw it and pick it up again might have been very cool. So I think that there's improvement there, but it's totally serviceable and very satisfying when you do knock over a machine with a big thwack. I will demonstrate one of the silliest weapons. This is a DLC weapon, and it's one that you upgrade. It's such a... I love that it's like literally a different... It's not just another bow, it's a different kind of weapon. I have to hold it, and it creates an icicle. And it's super... I've upgraded this thing to be kind of broken. It's very, very high damage. So it takes out a lot of enemies in one hit. And even the very, very strong animals, robots that'll take down in like 3 hits. This creature doesn't know that I'm here.
Just haven't noticed.
Yeah. Look at I love that you can see it peeking over the edge. And the game does a pretty fair job of matching eye lines. There he is. Alright, buddy. Takes a while to load up. Ooh, and I missed. This thing looks like a flailing weasel / chicken. The animations are obviously very, very... inspired by real animals. Whoever did the animation for all the creatures, robotic creatures in the game, studied real animal movements very, very closely. And what's crazy is because those aren't human critters, they couldn't just stick a bunch of mocap ping pong balls on mocap dots on a chicken or a weasel. They had to I assume they had to hand animate all that. You can mocap certain things like a dog, which studios have done, mocapping a horse, which developers have done. But for the kind of creatures that they're making, diversity, a lot of this was hand animated, which again feels like magic to me. I love this, that the wind is picking up. It's obvious that it's gonna rain. Like the cloud is, there's so much cloud cover. Oh, you know what? And I was wrong. The wind is actually pushing Aloy's hair. That's really cool to see. She's kind of blocking the wind with her hand. everybody's super reactive, or everything is reactive to the weather. Similar to Red Dead. Arthur in Red Dead is pretty reactive to the weather. Even her weapon, like the sack of like freeze juice that she has in there is kind of gooshing around. Snow from the ground is being picked up and thrown by the wind. I think that this game had to sort of sacrifice a certain amount of interactivity for visual fidelity. And I'm hoping that next time around, the environment in the world will be super interactive and won't have to sacrifice that interactivity for the good looks. Like, for example, me being able to freeze the water with this weapon, with this ice weapon, and you know, make shoot platforms across the pond for me to hop over and across, or of course being able to light grass on fire, or knock down trees, or climb trees. I mean, really, I'm talking about like a Breath of the Wild approach, but with a state-of-the-art visuals. I love that all the armors serve a different purpose. Like, there's no armor that's clearly better than another. For every armor, you can always find a better armor for a different situation. And I like that, because I am bothered when you find a really cool looking armor in a game and it becomes surpassed. And it just kind of feels like, I love this armor, I like the way it looks, but I like can't wear it because it doesn't have any function anymore. I only like the form. So I like a game where your preferences aren't punished when it comes to armor. If you like an armor, you can upgrade it in the game, add modifications to it, and stick with it. And it won't be a wrong choice. There's no like wrong choice of armor. I like that this is the only armor in the game that shows her bare midriff. And the armors in the game are not meant to make Aloy look sexy. I like that. Like, any sexiness that Aloy has comes from her character, from her capabilities, from her brain, like, from her hair, like, all that stuff. It's clear, like, they made an attractive looking character, and they know that they did that because she's not like super overweight with boils on her face. Like, clearly, you know, I'm not going to say that they made an average looking woman, but I do like that the primary priority when making the armors was to make something that looked practical, looked cool, and came from the culture that it's named after, primarily. Like, you can tell that they cared so much about the cultures that a Banuk tribe who lives in the icy regions isn't going to make an armor like this. This was made by a tribe that lives in the jungles, so they don't have to keep warm, so you can do things like show your bare midriff. And yeah, they keep the quote-unquote, you know, fan service, the sexy armors to a very, very minimum, which is to say this armor and one other, which is actually just a different version of the same armor. I love how she's tired after she runs. She's actually, like, catching her breath. That's good stuff. This armor has... As soon as she stands up straight, I'm going to go into photo mode, because this armor has ridiculous texture diversity. So let's see, again, we have those Karja style patterns. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, so we have new patterns, similar color to the old pattern, but a genuinely new, it looks like a circuit board pattern, which makes sense. That they would take inspiration from circuit boards that they probably loot from, deceased creatures, machines, that they would take inspiration from that and make a silk like that. Very, very cool. It's a different pattern, different color to the red underneath. Another gold accent, and it folds up and out and over the belt, and just peeking across. Like, they didn't have to put this yellow under there. It's a whole nother texture with a whole nother pattern underneath. Then you have this really phenomenal leather. The red leather here is very, very photorealistic. And it's right up against this very shiny, very obsidian sort of feathered metal here. Kind of looks like a bandolier. I like the headdress. It's very cool. It obviously someone fashioned it. They convince me because of how they made these armors that the people, the legit actual in-universe people who made this armor care as much about their clothing as the developers do. That someone with a real profession and real skill made this thing. Most games don't even get close to being able to do that kind of thing. Let's look at the... Oh, can't get that close. The shin guards are really, really cool. The blue leather it's pretty amazing. It's oh, if I get super close, because I actually think it almost looks like there's even a pattern in the blue armor. There's like red tints that you see. It looks like almost a pattern. Very similar to the red, but slightly different. Again, like, why make it a slightly different pattern? Why not just reuse that asset? But no, they went the full mile. It doesn't seem like this developer really likes to reuse assets. And I think that they can afford really good asset diversity because of how efficient the Decima engine is. I like that different regions have different musical motifs. So that you don't really forget where you are. But, alright, let me see if I can just go to one other place and then call this a tour. I'm gonna maybe jump on the, back of a tall neck. I'm just trying to see which tall neck I should jump on. I might do the first tall neck, and I'm pretty close to it. Yeah, let's jump on that tall neck. These blistered trees here, pretty cool looking, all different. If it was like the same sort of blister pattern, it would be pretty obvious, and it's not. And this tells a story. Like, we fought a battle here, and that's what happened. These trees got blistered. I would love if they were more interactable, and we could actually like blast through them. As is, but I think that's kind of interactivity is an ambition for the next game. Only a guess of mine. I like that she doesn't get tired. I like that they don't really make stamina an issue. It makes the game less quote-unquote hardcore. But I don't think the point of this game is to be like a Dark Souls stamina management.
This scrapes.
Stamina management game. I think I like that she can just run forever. It's fine. You need to get to where you're going. That's good. She's getting a little dirty down here. The frickin' Carja silks are getting dusted with dirt. It's all clean now, though. I like that. A little bit of change, a little bit of dynamic. I haven't done anything with rideable mounts. I can call one right now. You know, I might as well, because this game feels like it has everything, and then all of a sudden you're able to just call in a ride, and it just... Because this game is so well done and so interesting as is, I forget that I'm able to call them out. It like fades into the background. Like, if you told me that you'd be playing a game where you could call in a robot horse and ride it around a post-historic landscape, and that would be the least interesting part of the game, I mean, that just says so much. Oh, this is cool. Let me get on the Strider again. This is a really nice little detail. That, number one, I love that you can aim while on the Strider. Love that. Seriously. And I love that when you aim, keep paying attention to her bottom half, and you do the full turnaround. She turns around on this horse. She goes all the way around, hooks her leg over the top, all the way till she's backward, which is really great.
It's going white.
Till she does a 360. I just love that little detail where they were like, you know, if we're gonna let someone aim 360, she shouldn't just look super off and weird. I mean, there is a little bit of jankiness to that animation, but her actual legs do all the things that your legs would need to do. I'm gonna blast this thing while I'm riding, or at least do my best to. Nice. I almost missed him, actually. Love those sparks. They're very bright. They're like as bright as they should be for sparks, and then they go away. Little dying animation. And of course, this creature here, the Strider, is a really, really magnificent looking animal. And you can see even the light is bleeding onto Aloy. So the actual light in front of its face, the headlight, is dynamic. And there's multiple different creatures that you can ride. I liked that. I didn't expect that. Hey, a rabbit. Look at this feller. He was just like hanging out with me up here. There's a machine that looks like a goat. There's one that looks like a bronco. There's one that looks like a bull with horns. I just love that they could have just kept it simple. Like, you know what? Let's just have one. Just one rideable animal. That's plenty. That's already past our budget. There we go. Well done, Aloy. This just as is really well done. But there's like because I prefer the sort of round horn goat machine to ride, so I just like that I can actually go find my specific sort of favorite mount. Yeah, the materials are very, very high resolution on this machine. And I love how she balances out. She changes her balance and she moves around, equalizing her center of gravity. Really great stuff, because she was just standing up here super stiff, it would look bad. So then the solution would be to keep the tall neck's head sort of still as it walks, which just makes the whole tall neck look a lot more stiff and kills any sort of believability. So I like that they just went whole hog. Feels like this game has very little compromises. Super ambitious team. I don't know if I've said it yet, but the spirit of this game is what I love the most. This game has such a spirit to it. Like, it is made by a team that wanted to show somebody something new and do it with excellence. I mean, I'm sort of really this whole thing is about gushing about them, so just get ready for me to gush some more. But this team went from making first-person linear shooters, highly linear shooters, which means you go from one level to the next to the next. There's no going back. There's no choice in where you go, left or right, or what mission you're going to do. It was just very choreographed, cinematic, first-person shooting. They went to what is maybe the complete opposite genre, a completely open-world, third-person shooter, maybe you can call it, with a completely different setting. And it wasn't like, you know what, we're just going to try this and see how it works. There was no half measure here. They made an open world in a completely new setting and a completely original style on their first try, and did it better than anybody else could have, clearly. Like, it reminds me a little bit of like Nintendo with Breath of the Wild, where they had never really made an open world game before, and then they just went out and made the best one in existence. I like the level of detail is pretty sharp. They're very good at that. I like the depth of field. I like that Aloy's just a little bit blurry here, and it keeps you focused in the middle. I don't love it, but it does add a little something. I won't deny it. There's something that making a texture blurry, not the actual texture itself, but adding depth of field to a texture sort of tricks your brain into thinking it's like a lot higher quality than it is, and this game already has very high quality textures. I'm wondering if there's anything I'm missing in the menu. Like, I do like the weapons look very cool. They're all super intricate in how they're made. Like this thing, she shoves a canister of blaze in there. One of the things, again, that interactivity, you'll see if it was nighttime, the fire that you blow, it reflects off of surfaces, but it doesn't like light up the night. It's not, you know, fire is so bright in real life. It doesn't light up the environment like a real dynamic light would, which is fine. It's not, you know, this game came out in 2017. They're doing their best. I like that she has different animations. She's holding it with one hand, and then when you aim, she brings it back up with two hands. But she lets go with one hand. I love that to keep her balance. Very, very tight, super detailed animation there. But yeah, I'm in awe of how ambitious this game was. What an ambitious team. And like I said, they went off and then made some DLC that kept tweaking on the engine itself, added technology to the game that was a year old, which makes me too excited. Honestly, too excited for the sequel. But, alright, I think I'm gonna leave it here. And love the little details in games, adore the little details. It's what makes me fall in love with the game. I can like a game that's pretty good, but when it has these little details in it, that's when I fall in love with the game and it really sticks in my memory and it becomes a game I want to keep going back to. This game is 3 years old and I still, at least once a month, go back to it just to run around and get reabsorbed in the world. I have not done a second playthrough of this game. It's just the world itself is so absorbing that I love just going back to it and kind of being in awe still at the quality. And so hopefully I'll do more of these with other games I'm in awe of. Thinking of God of War, thinking of Spider-Man, and maybe others. But, alright, I'm going to tune this one out, and we'll do another one.